Welcome to the Ghost of the Orange Bowl. I'm Jay Rao. Our guest today is one of the fastest and most confident players to probably play for the Miami Hurricanes. During his career at UM, the Hurricanes were 44 and 0. I'm sorry, 44 and 4, two national championships, 4 and 0 in bowl games, and never lost a home game at the Orange Bowl. He later went on to become a first-round draft pick with the Miami Dolphins, played 7 years in the NFL, and when his career was over, he went on to catch the bad guys as a law enforcement officer and as a policeman and as a federal agent. Please welcome to our show the man simply known as Thrill, Randal Hill. Welcome to the show, Randal.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And sorry for being late. Yes, I was late, guys. I apologize for being late.
That's okay. That's okay. We're glad you're here. Randal, you grew up in Miami. You're a true 305 guy. I mean, your parents were both educators. Your mom was a school teacher. Your dad was a high school principal.
Yes, sir.
What was your childhood like growing up in Miami, and where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up just south of Kendall, and I attended Miami Killian Senior High School. But my life was pretty structured. No, I was not from the inner city. And I'm not going to lie, my parents gave me everything I needed to succeed. So my life was pretty structured. But the biggest thing in my life that my parents stressed was education.
Mm-hmm. Your dad was a big influence on you on your athletic career. Your dad, Ransom Hill.
Yes,
I looked him up. He was quite an athlete himself. Yes. Back at Mays High School down in Goulds, and he got you involved in Pop Warner football and track. Is it true you played on a Pop Warner team called the South Dade Packers?
Yes.
That played in Colonial Park?
It started off at Eureka Park, and then we transferred over to Colonial Park. And believe it or not, at one time, my dad had about 5 guys who he coached Little League that actually played at the University of Miami that were on scholarship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so my dad was a bit influenced on the not only young adults, but the community. He also, he was a good athlete at Mays High School, but he played on one of the only teams in history in the United States at Albany State University that was undefeated and unscored on. Never been done before. So my dad, it was a big influence, but even more so than the sports. I think he touched the community. He still touches the community. He still has his finger on the pulse, and he believes in success, and he believes in peace and harmony.
You just mentioned that there were like 5 guys on your team that played at the University of Miami. I know Robert Bailey and Alex Johnson were 2 of them. Who are the other guys?
Myself, Robert Bailey, Alex Johnson, Ernie Parrish.
Okay. All right.
And I want to say Willis
Pegues?
He may have played. It may have been 4 guys, but all of us played for my dad at South Dade.
Wow.
And all of us had a shot at the NFL, and we all graduated from college.
Wow, that's awesome. You went on to play at and attend Miami Killian High School, and at Killian, I think that's where you got the nickname Thrill. How did that come about?
Well, a lot of people don't know. I played wide receiver, but I started off as the starting JV quarterback, junior varsity quarterback. And then when I went up to varsity, believe it or not, I had never really played defensive before, and I was an All-American defensive back. And I had 11 interceptions in 1 year. And there was a newspaper down on the southern end of the county called South Dade News Leader.
Right.
And the South Dade News Leader did a big article about me and all the interceptions that I had in 1 year. Which, I guess the name kind of stuck with me. And I remember going to the University of Miami, and guys just automatically calling me Thrill. And I'm like, okay, I guess this is going to stick. But I guess, and the legend continues.
All right. You played in a very competitive league in your district down in South Dade County. I mean, you were playing with some really good players at Killian, but you were also playing against teams like Southridge, Palmetto, South Miami, Homestead. These were all really good teams. And a lot of the guys that you played against played with you at UM as well.
Right? Some of the guys played with me at the University of Miami, and guys went on to other schools, Florida State, Florida. But it was a sense of community pride, and back then, unlike now, there was no recruiting when it came to public high school,
Mhm.
and there was no you basically played in your district, and you couldn't pick and choose what school you went to. So wherever you went, it's kind of like I'll draw an analogy and start an argument here. Like Michael Jordan and or LeBron James.
Mhm.
LeBron James can put a team together
Right.
or go somewhere and play with other top tier talent. But Jordan basically created his team. So that's basically what we did back then. And we played at the high school, and we took pride at it.
Now, you were a very highly recruited player. Now, back in your day, they didn't have this star system like 5-star recruits, 4-star recruits.
Yeah.
But if there were, you would have been easily a 5-star guy. You were the number one prospect in Dade County.
I was the number one prospect in Dade County as a defensive back,
Right.
and I was the number 2 rated defensive back in the country.
Uh-huh.
And every day I would come home, and I would have like 5 or 6 recruits sitting on my parents' front doorstep, from Alabama to Notre Dame to Pittsburgh to Syracuse to Florida State. I mean, the list goes on and on. And literally, I would walk right past them and say, "Yeah, my mom and dad right there in the kitchen. Go ahead and talk to them."
Right.
Because everything, and I try to tell young adults now that, yeah, I'm 52 years old and I had a lot of fun. I got my own houses, my own cars, got my own life, but I still do not make any major decisions in life without talking to my mom and dad first. So I made sure that the recruiters understood that, no, you got to deal with my mom and my dad before you even get a chance to talk to me. If they say yes, then you can talk with me, and then we can move forward.
Right. Now, you mentioned all the schools that were
Mhm.
looking at you,
Mhm.
but you chose Miami. Why did you choose the Hurricanes?
No, I did not choose Miami. That is
Oh,
the biggest misconception.
Oh, they chose you.
No, it's I kind of laugh about it now, because going back to the days with Coach Hubbard Alexander and Joe Brodsky, legendary down here, and also Jimmy Johnson. Well, here's the story. Initially, I didn't even give Miami an official visit, and
Oh.
I even went to Florida State football camp. I went to West Virginia football camp, and when I visited, first, here's the story. Okay, I was initially gonna think about going to Alabama. I was gonna sign to go to Alabama. Ray Perkins was the head coach. Derek Thomas was my
Right.
yeah. So
South Miami.
Yeah, well, but we grew up in the same area.
Okay.
His grandmother and my grandmother were on the same street, so we knew each other. And and talking to Derek, I felt that was my best choice to go to Alabama. Well, Ray Perkins left; he went to Tampa. So I just started going down my list. Meanwhile, Miami's not on my list at this point. Yeah, I know Miami. I know all the great people, great athletes and great student athletes who went to Miami, but I still was. I kind of want to get away from home, like most young adults. I want to get away. I want to sprout my own wings and do my own thing. So I visited Florida State, and I was their number 1 recruit. And literally, I fly in, and I'm from an upperly mobile family, and like I said, we weren't impoverished. We I had everything I need because of my parents. So a lot of these schools, they weren't going to try to throw money at me and break the rules, because why break the rules with a guy who already has everything? So what Florida State did was, when I landed at the airport in Tallahassee, of course, Bobby Bowden greets me at the plane. Walk down the not even through a jetway, walk down some of the
right.
The portable staircase, and I remember this like it was yesterday. And Bobby Bowden's there to greet me, and then next to Bobby Bowden is Governor Bob Graham, and he's there to greet me.
Oh, wow.
And then who walks up behind Bob Graham is Deion Sanders, and I'm looking like, okay. But what really got it was the next person who came up to me on the tarmac was Burt Reynolds. I'm like, okay, All right.
Wow.
Yeah. So you got Burt Reynolds, you got Bob Graham, you have Deion Sanders, Bobby Bowden. I'm like, okay, I think they really want me to play here because
Wow.
what they wanted me to do was start opposite of Deion Sanders. At that particular time, there was another guy who was unrelated to Deion
Is it
Sanders.
Tracy Sanders?
Tracy Sanders, yes, sir. But he had some good games and bad games, and they wanted me to play opposite of Deion Sanders. So after my visit, I officially, if you can go back and look into some of the periodicals, I officially committed to Florida State. So I came home and I told my dad, I said, hey, Dad, I said, yeah, I'm thinking about, I'm going to go to Florida State. My dad didn't, he's a man of very few words, but he speaks volumes by just his stature. And he looked at me, he says, okay. He says, if that's your decision, that's fine. He says, the family supports it. So meanwhile, and I alluded to this earlier, that my grandparents were down the street from Derek Thomas's grandparents, and my dad takes me over there. He says, go ahead and tell your grandfather where you want to go to school. And I said, Granddad, I said, after 2 years of being recruited heavily, I said, and almost every major Division I school recruited me, I'm going to go to Florida State. And he looked at me and he says, son, he says, you're my favorite grandchild. And Florida State is a good school, but I think you should go to University of Miami because the University of Miami is right down the street, and your grandmother and your grandfather and your mom and dad can watch you grow up to be a nice young man. Son, I think you need to go to University of Miami. Yes, sir, I'm going to University of Miami. Literally, that's how it was. My grandfather made my decision for me. Wow. And because I don't just talk it, and I'm no angel, but I believe in listening to people who have that type of wisdom, and it worked out for the best.
Wow, that's interesting. So your grandfather
Yeah.
really was instrumental in bringing you to UM. So you get to UM, and then all of a sudden, Jimmy Johnson says, I want you to play offense. And when I hear things like that, and today, we were talking about how players are different today compared to back when you play. Nowadays, if a coach says, hey, I want you to switch positions, a lot of kids are like, I'm going to hit the transfer portal.
Exactly. Hold on. You're missing half of the story here. I mean, I need more time than what's allotted. I'm going to give you guys the full story.
All right.
So but it gives you a sense of what the University of Miami was back in the day. So I signed to go to the University of Miami, and I'm going to, I'm running track, and I'm one of the fastest runners and breaking a lot of records and stuff. So I want to see if the regional meet. I'm getting ready to run. It was a 220 back then, the 220-yard dash, which is actually longer than the 200 meters. So I'm getting ready to warm up, and Tolbert Bain, Jerome Brown, Alonzo Highsmith, Melvin Bratton, they all come down and they look at me and they said, hey, how many yards are you going to win by? And I scratched my head. I'm like, what are you talking about? How many yards I'm going to win? No, I'm going to win the race. No. You signed to go to the University of Miami. We didn't know how many yards you're going to win by.
Right.
Because you have to represent the University of Miami. We just don't win. We win with style points. Like, okay. I win by 8 or 9 yards. Okay. And they say, okay, that's fine. So anyway, that carries over to the very first thing that you do at the University of Miami when you get there is you run the 40. So guys were holding out, such as Jerome Brown and Alonzo Highsmith, and Jimmy Johnson is talking to them, and then Alonzo and those guys, they come over to me and they say that, hey, you're gonna have the fast time in 40, right? I'm like, yeah. He said, because we just told Jimmy Johnson that, and we don't want you to make us look like we're lying, like we don't know what we're talking about. And then I had on some old school high top cleats, and I just loved them. And then Alonzo looks at me and says, "You're gonna run a nose?" I'm like, yeah. And he says, "And you're gonna run a 4.4 or better?" I'm like, yeah. So I ended up running like a low 4.3. And Jimmy Johnson looks at me, and those guys, Alonzo Highsmith, Jerome Brown, and all this, they're walking off the field, and they yell back at Jimmy, and they said, what was the time? And then Jimmy's like, he just gives them like a thumbs up, like I had the fastest time. So I think what Jimmy noticed was the speed that I had. And then at that particular time, I want to say right after the first game or right before the first game, which was University of Florida, Brett Perriman got hurt. So Jimmy Johnson literally after the University of Florida, University of Miami game, looked at me and said, "Hey, Do me a favor, go play wide receiver. So, and I'm looking over there. Okay, you got Brian Blaze, you got Michael Irvin. I'm like, okay, I guess I need to learn this real fast. So I literally got in line behind those guys and learned how to play wide receiver.
Oh, awesome. Now, when you get to UM, one of the old traditions, they don't do this anymore, but when you were there, one of the traditions is that when the freshmen come in, they shave the freshmen's all their heads. And they let you know right away that you're going to have to earn your spot here. They don't just just because you're a 5-star recruit, you don't just get to play here. They put you in your place right away.
Yeah, we had the and hey, listen, and this doesn't count for today's. You can't do this type of thing because we're different now. But yeah, you had the little hazing going on back then. But it was all in fun. But our hazing was a little bit different. We literally were hazed on the field, and that came from. You got to understand, we won the national championship that year in 1987, and we literally had 10 freshmen who did not redshirt.
Right.
So we went out and our hazing wasn't a shaved head; it was literally the torment and or the learning. And or the understanding that wolves do eat their own on the field, and that was done in practice. Those were some of the most brutal practices that we would have that I've ever been through. Right. And there was a lot of physicality. There was a lot of hitting. There was a lot of trash talking, and people talked about our practices being harder than the games, and right. They were. That was our hazing on the field.
Wow. So really, it was the practices that made everything tough. Your first start came 1988 against Florida State. The first year, you were a kickoff returner mostly. Your freshman year, right?
Yes.
So then you're starting your very first game, the opening game of the 88 season against FSU. They come in ranked number 1 in the country. They make a rap video called the Seminole Rap. Yeah. And they even celebrated their number 1 preseason ranking. And you guys just came out and just beat the heck out of them that night.
What was it,
31 to nothing?
Yeah, because you had to have a sense of pride of home. And I don't think the younger generation understands of what it means to play at home and or have home field advantage. First off, yes, you play for the University of Miami and you have on the orange and green and you have the U on the side of your helmet. But one of the things that you have to understand that you represent is when you walk out of that tunnel and you come through the smoke, you have the name of your family on your back. So I represented everyone in my family. Also, you have the multicultural area of South Florida, which you represent. You represent the Mario Boat Lift. You represent the heydays of the Cocaine Cowboys. You represent some of the rioting here. You represent everyone who wants to come here. You represent this being the next borough of New York. You represent all of those elements. And it's important that you understand that you carry a lot of weight on your back. You're not worried back then. You're not worried about making it to the NFL and where you're going in the draft and who you're going to be playing for. You're worrying about not losing games at home and not disappointing the people who have supported you and this community, this 305-786-954. You represent all that is good in South Florida, and that comes first, not how the guys are perceiving it today.
Wow. And there's certain games that come to mind when I think of your career.
Here you go.
Well, I mean,
before you say anything, it's going to be either Notre Dame or it's going to be the Texas Cotton Bowl. Am I right or wrong?
Oh yeah, absolutely, you are. But
and no, I don't have a script in front of me. But I
want to set up the Notre Dame thing before your obvious 3rd and 43, which we'll get to. Before that, the year before, you guys go up to South Bend and they come out with these shirts called the Catholics versus Convicts, and there's a fight in front of the tunnel. And it always struck me that Notre Dame had their stadium back then. It's changed a little bit since then, but it seemed like both teams came out of the same tunnel, and there's no space, no sideline space in that stadium. what went on that
Oh my
afternoon?
goodness. All right, listen. Let me. I mean, you asked direct questions, but there's a lot of stories behind. That's why
Yeah.
I need a lot more time, guys. Um, you got to understand this. The University of Miami back then was as close to being a family, meaning, let me say this gently, a football mafia family. Okay, and I don't mean criminally. I got to say that nowadays. Got to be politically correct. Um, but what I mean by that is you have to answer to guys who came before you,
Mm.
and guys who came before us, such as Stanley Shakespeare, um, Eddie Brown, Vinny Testaverde, Bernie Kosar. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Certain games you just do not lose. Certain games you do not need to get hyped up for, or coach doesn't need to motivate you for. Certain games you're definitely not going to, before a game, shake hands at a coin toss. And Notre Dame is just one of those games. You respect the guys. Last year I talked to Rocket Ishmael, and these guys. I mean, you respect them as individuals, but game time you have zero respect, and this is a fight. This is not, I'm going to shake your hand and then I'm going to get into a fight with you on the field. This is a 4-quarter fight and or battle, and that's what the mentality was. But you didn't want to disappoint the guys who came before you because they set the tone. So even if you look at all the some of the documentaries, Catholics versus convicts, and all that stuff, and the University of Miami has some crazy shirts too. We're going to keep this PG. I'm going to leave it alone. But if you notice, there's on that marquee talking about Catholics versus convicts and or some of the Notre Dame stuff. There's Notre Dame is standing there and we're standing there. And you look at the individual who's standing right in front of Notre Dame, and of course I'm smaller, but my fist was already taped up because what's going to happen. You don't back down from anyone, especially when you're representing and you're carrying the weight of all of South Florida on your back. You just don't back down. And it was we lost that game, and I'm going to say we lost that game. And a lot of people say, well, it was a bad call by the
Yeah.
official. No, the University of Miami lost that game because if a game comes down to a bad call by the official, then the losing team did not do its job, and we did not do our job. We had the game in hand. We should have won the game convincingly. If we would have executed the way Gary Stevens and Jimmy Johnson and Dave Wanstead and Butch Davis put things together, then we would have won a little bit more convincingly. But we lost that game.
Now, the next year, you guys get big time revenge. They come down to the Orange Bowl. It's a frenzied crowd, and
Yeah.
you made the biggest play of the game. I mean, 3rd and 43 doesn't happen I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever seen that happen before.
Yeah.
Take us back through that play.
Well, I mean, you got to understand. Back then in the huddle, we had many riots in the huddle. We had there was like very quick arguments and or discussions in the huddle. And the quarterback and some of the offensive linemen would keep some of the rowdy guys in order, but it's 3rd and 43. I mean, most coaches would call a draw play. Most coaches would call a something just to get some yardage. But again, you're playing in South Florida. I'm playing in front of my mom, my dad, my girlfriend at the time, Michelle. I'm playing in front of my aunt who got her master's degree at the University of Miami. I'm playing in front of my dad who got his master's degree at the University of Miami. I'm playing in front of my mom who got her master's degree at the University of Miami. I'm playing in front of my uncle who got his doctoral at the University of Miami. Like I said, playing in front of my girlfriend at the time whose name is engraved on the wall at the University of Miami well before mine was, Phi Beta Kappa chemistry. So you don't want to disappoint anyone, and And that's just how we play the game. So you're talking about 3rd and 43. Okay, well, we'll get the first down. And people are like, what are you talking about? Get the first. No, that's your mentality. You're never gonna think you're gonna lose a game, regardless if you're behind or not. You're always gonna win the game, and you're always gonna come out ahead because the University of Miami is a school where, regardless of how things may look, you're gonna win. And 3rd and 43, no problem. Get the first down.
We got to talk about the other famous play that you were involved in, the famous touchdown against Texas in the Cotton Bowl.
I was just pissed off.
You run through the tunnel and you give them the 6-shooter.
Well, if you go back historically, I hadn't had a ball thrown to me all game, and I had a few words with the quarterback in the office of huddle. Because I didn't had a ball thrown to me. Everybody's having fun. Everyone's dancing. Everyone's celebrating. We had over 200 yards in penalty. We're still crushing them, and I had a ball thrown to me all game. No, the next ball must come to me, especially if I'm one-on-one and we're in Texas and we're having fun. So it was basically, I want to say 93 Y up tailback option, which the ball's going to come to me. Craig Erickson just said, Randall, just run. I'll throw you the ball. Not a big deal. But again, that's the mystique of the University of Miami, being able to have fun, graduate on time, and and I have to say that, even though we had fun on the field, we crushed people, we still had one of the highest graduation rates in the country, and that wasn't because professors gave us grades. I had a professor tell me one time that the highest grade that an athlete would get in this class would be a C+. I got a C+. I've had other issues, with professors, but we overcame those obstacles, and we were ordered by Jimmy Johnson to sit in the front of the classroom. We were not allowed to wear any green and or orange. We were to blend in and show professors that we were students of our majors, and we were students of our university. So we sat in the front of the class. Our coaches, sometimes position coaches, would come to make sure we were in class. And if you were not in class, and if you were not a student above par, Jimmy Johnson will make sure that that you were not there the next year.
You guys had just ridiculous success. I mean, like, you were undefeated in the Orange Bowl your entire 4 years there, never lost. And you were you look at the program now, and the last, say, 15 years has kind of struggled with consistency. What do you think needs to be done to get the program back to the level where you played at, or is that even realistic?
It is realistic. I have my opinion, which probably is going to go on deaf ears, but I'm glad I got this stage here so I can say it. What needs to occur is you need to, first of all, and you alluded to this before I even said it, before I may even, you got to get away from this star system. I don't care about, well, this guy is a 6-star, this guy is a 10-star. I could care less. You have to recruit a personality. You have to recruit individuals who have what Dr. King annotated. It's called the drum major instinct. The want, will, and or desire to be the best. A drum major leads. A drum major comes out before the band. A drum major comes out before the percussion section. A drum major sets the tone. If you have guys who have the want, will, and or desire to be the best, the drum major instinct, you'll have a winner. I've had talks years ago with a guy by the name of Tom Moore. Tom Moore is the guy who created the Pittsburgh Steelers back in the day with Swan and Stallworth. And he also did Peyton Manning. And he looked at me one day and he said, guys from Florida, Texas, know how to win because you have a different mentality. He never said you have great talent. He said you have a different mentality. You have to recruit individuals who have that mentality, who refuse to lose. I'll give you another example. One of the high draft picks back in the day was Alonzo Highsmith. Alonzo Highsmith was one of the great running backs / fullbacks here at the University of Miami. But in high school, he was a defensive end.
Right.
So again, it's not wanting to lose and not being what just always being on top of your game. If you recruit that type of personality, you'll win.
Mhm.
But you can't just go off of a star system. Also, you have to embrace um, some of the ideals that we've had before in the past. Yeah, I know that times have changed, but players that you recruited who like for example like nowadays you have this and you alluded to it before. You have the transfer portal.
Portal, yeah.
Well, we had a transfer portal back then. It was called junior college transfer. um Cortez Kennedy, junior college transfer. Eddie Brown, junior college transfer. You can't always look towards but towards the transfer portal to fill your gaps, because those guys sometimes they think that they are owed something. Me, my, I. But if you look at someone who's in junior college who's transferring over, those guys are hungry.
Mhm.
They want to play. They still have something to prove. So you have to, again, it goes to the right mentality. And that's one of the things that Jimmy Johnson did, Howard Schnellenberger did. They recruited guys who had the right mentality. Jimmy Johnson, think about it. His major was psychology, psychology or psychiatry, same dealing with the mind.
Mhm.
I remember one time Jimmy Johnson, there was a tropical depression coming through, and he canceled practice, and he said we're gonna have a lot of meetings to make up for it.
Right.
But as soon as the first person put his hands on the door to leave, he said, "You know what? I changed my mind. We're gonna practice today." You have to be prepared for everything and anything.
Right. You went on to become a first-round pick for the
Mhm.
Dolphins, and you played 7 years in the
Mhm.
National Football League. What are your memories of playing for the Dolphins, Shula? I guess you were traded after your first game to the
Yeah.
Cardinals, and
Yeah,
then you came back again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the NFL is a business, and,
Mhm.
and that's all it is. I played. I got my pension. I got my 401k. I'm happy because there's always life after football, and that's the way I looked at it. Football and the NFL was gave me a jump start on life. You made some money, had some fun, made a few friends, but it's not, to me, it's not life.
Mhm.
Life is getting a job that you can, and or a career that you can excel in, because the average person doesn't play professional football. um, if you want to settle down. I did. Been with my wife. We've been together a total of 34 years.
Wow.
And so it's kind of like emulating what my mom and my dad did. They've been together over like 50 some odd years. So the NFL, again, it gives you a jump start on life, but it's not life. Some guys, they fall apart when their NFL career is over, or
Yeah.
if they don't make it, they fall apart. And my parents set me aside and say, "Hey, listen, focus on a career, focus on settling down, and focus on what your next step would be."
Finally, my final point I want to ask about is your life.
We need more time. I don't know why these guys are cutting me off. We need more time. But go ahead.
I'd love to have more time. I'd like to touch on your life after football. You've gone into a long career in law enforcement. You even ran for Congress
Yes.
a few years back. Talk about your career after football.
Some things I can talk about, and what you have to do, you have to get clearance for me to talk about a lot of stuff. I've had a lot of fun. I can say I've worked with some great guys, and what I do now is, I'll say it to you like this: I am them, we are they. I'm a figment of your imagination and dismissed as so. I'm your man in black. I'll leave it at that.
And of course you mentioned your family. Your wife you've been with for 34 years, and your daughter just recently graduated with a 4.0 grade point average and is at UF now, right?
No, well, yeah, she's at University of Florida, and University of Florida is really taking care of her, and she's going to probably be go into medicine, such as my wife, and we try to we try to stay humble. When it comes to my wife, there's no way in the world I will let her be humble, because she, like I said, I had everything laid out for me. My wife came from the inner city. She shared a bedroom with her mother, but
Mhm.
yet and still, her name was on the wall at the University of Miami well before well before mine was. And when you talk about not having hardly anything and still being able, Phi Beta Kappa chemistry, board certified internal medicine doctor, medical director with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Say no more.
Wow. Well, Randall, you've had a great career and you've had a great life. Thank you so much for joining us on the Go See Orange Bowl, and continued success in the future.
No, thank you for having me. And I gotta say, listen, guys, I was late. I apologize. These guys waited for me. And thank you for waiting for me, and thank you for letting me, say a few words, hopefully of encouragement to someone who may be watching. And hopefully you'll have me. If you have me back, I won't be late again. I promise.
Thank you so much, Randall. And for Miami's community newspapers, I'm Jay Rao, and thanks so much. And we'll see you again with another ghost from the Orange Bowl.